Welcome to the Grow Ortho live stream. I am one of your hosts, Zach Dykes, joined by Kayla Brown, one of HIP's very own practice growth advisor. Welcome to the show, Kayla.
Thank you so much, Zach. I'm so happy to be here.
I am excited for this because we've been playing it for a few weeks and now we're finally getting to sit down and chat. I'm excited to just give all of our partners and future partners just a ton of actionable insights on what they can be doing to train their teams. But everybody that's watching us live, let us know how you're doing, where you're watching from, and that you're excited for today's live stream because it's going to be a banger. I can tell y'all that. But yeah, let us know how you're doing down in the comments. Today, we're excited. We've got an awesome live stream plan for you. We're diving into how to transform your training headaches into practice-wide growth by clarifying roles, because everybody got to know what they're doing. You know what I mean? That's the thing where people get frustrated and they get angry because they don't know what they're doing. Setting smart goals, which I'm looking forward to that, and running culture building one-on-ones. They don't have to be scary. They don't have to be this thing that just like looms over you and attacks you out of nowhere. That empowers every teammate. And of course, the leadership that we need to empower leaders to lead effectively. So it's going to be a great time. We're also going to be taking your questions from you in the second half. If you got them, if they're relevant to what we're talking about in the moment, we might even answer them right then and there. So go ahead right now, pop them in the chat. That way we can see them. That way we can peruse them, and we can get the best answer for you. So just go ahead, pop them in the chat, and if you haven't already, hit the like, hit the subscribe, because each and every week we bring you live streams. We bring you an awesome podcast, either in Grow Dental or Grow Ortho. Grow Dental is our new show, so you definitely want to be checking that out if you are a dental practice and you're wanting to have explosive growth while also carrying your team to the top, the tippy top of the mountain, guys. It's so exciting that we're doing all these cool things. So, Kayla, before we jump into the meat and the potatoes, tell everybody about yourself and your experience within the orthodontic industry.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that great introduction to today's live stream, Zach. It's very exciting that we get to do this. I come from a background heavy in operations. I have about 14 years in orthodontics, about 15 years in dental. I've worked every position from clinical chairside assistant, sterilization assistant, call center agent answering the phones, front desk, treatment coordinator, office manager, clinical director of operations. My background is very heavy in operational processes, policies, developing those, a lot of HR, a lot of coaching. When I was in the orthodontic practice, we had just acquired some orthodontic offices within the DSO that I was working with at the time, and didn't really have a solid plan moving forward. There was no foundation. So I was very, very involved in creating those foundational aspects, the building blocks of an orthodontic department. And part of that was, developing our teams, increasing our retention rate, making sure that our staff knew that they were valued so that they in turn would make sure that our patients knew that they were valued as well.
That's huge, because if the team doesn't feel valued, like it just breeds a lot of just animosity towards where they're working, how they're working, and they're not going to treat people well within the team, with the patients, and it's just a job.
Correct. Yes. And, without the culture and without those intentional conversations that we should be having on a regular basis, which I often find are lacking, and then not because of, a lack of knowledge or a lack of time. It's just, we don't always make time to have those intentional conversations. We don't always realize that our team values that one-on-one time that we can provide to them. They want to be heard. They want to know that they're valued. They want to know what they can do better, and they want to know what they're doing good at. It's not all about, this is where you need to improve. This is a coaching session.
Mm-hmm.
These are, intentional foundational building blocks that we need to be taking, not just the training in the beginning when they're hired, and then we set them free and just expect them to be happy, know what they're doing, and go about their day-to-day activities. Yes, they're already trained. They know what they're doing. They've been integrated into the team right off the bat. But there needs to be some sort of ongoing agenda, some ongoing cadence to continue to build that relationship with them, build that value in their position, see where they're at, how they're feeling, if they want to grow, if they love what they're doing, and what they're doing really great at. It's a time to celebrate them as well during those conversations. And in turn, they're going to treat your patients, who are the bread and butter of your practice, and you want them to be treated with the utmost respect and welcoming, inviting atmosphere. And they're going to do that if they know that they're valued, your internal team. They're then going to show their patients that they are valued as well as part of the practice.
Intentionality pops in my mind.
Yes.
That if you're intentional about your actions, you brought up the time aspect and everything, and I was always told it's like everybody gets 24 hours. It doesn't matter who you are. Like, even if you've got $1 billion, you don't get any more extra time. So it's like, it's not necessarily a time issue because everybody has the same amount of time. It's a priority issue. So if you're not prioritizing that part of your practice, you're going to have churn. You're going to have to constantly be training people. And it just sets up this meal kind of thing, and your patients are going to feel the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it definitely creates, stress in the practice, animosity from other team members when that churn increases, and that turnover rate is just astronomical. And there's a cost involved, the cost of hiring someone, terminating and then going through the hiring process, spending the time to do that. If we would just intentionally spend time, 15 minutes a week with each team member, or 30 minutes a month, take them out to lunch, have an intentional conversation with them over a coffee in the morning before morning huddle or before the day starts seeing patients. It's all about finding, a good spot on your schedule and making sure that these are scheduled intentionally, these conversations. And also, making sure that the team member that you are having these with and scheduling these with is aware that it's a time for them to come to you with intentional questions, what they're enjoying, what they need help with. It's all about them in these situations, and showing them that you have the time for them and you are willing to build upon that relationship and have these conversations goes so far in retaining those employees, those team members who are the heart of the practice.
Already given so much good stuff, and we're only like 11 minutes within the show, and that's a 5-minute countdown as well. So let's just picture this so people can have some like actionable things, because you gave some. I just want to go a little bit further. So when you walk into a practice wrestling with high turnover and inconsistent standards, what's the very first single thing that training systems can actually work on within that practice?
Yeah, so definitely, being reactive instead of proactive. Many practices kind of treat training as this one-time event when the employee is hired and onboarded, instead of an ongoing culture initiative or an ongoing process with a cadence, either weekly, biweekly, monthly, quarterly. And they react often to mistakes or shortcomings instead of building those proactive systems to be meeting with these team members on a cadence so that they are, overcoming obstacles before they even occur. If you give the team member, that chance to come to you in that one-on-one intentional conversation and let you know they're struggling in this area, then that opens the doors to, pairing them up with another team member who's really strong in this area to get them the proper guidance and coaching that they need before they make a mistake or before they leave the practice because they don't feel like they're fulfilling their expectations. And also, I see a lot of assumed knowledge. There's this unspoken expectation that if we, in their onboarding process, their training process initially, we just have them shadow, and they'll just figure it out. They'll learn and they'll just continue on with that. That's okay. That's typically how the training process goes initially. They're shadowing, a leader in the practice, whether it be in the clinic or the front desk, who has been in the practice. They've integrated themselves. They know and understand how it runs. However, that's not a continuous thing. I find a lot of times we just expect, after that first 90 days of training, they're good. We don't have to pay attention to them anymore. They're going to continue being good. They're going to continue just knowing what they know already. But in this orthodontic atmosphere that is ever evolving, we also need to understand that our team members need to be ever evolving, and we need to help them in that process of continuous learning.
Yeah, because the doctors have to get CE credits. They have to continually up their license and everything. And wouldn't you want your team to be on the same level as the doctor?
Yes.
Because you're going to make your team the weakest link, and the doctor can only do so much,
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, yes, the team member has been trained. They can answer the phone, but are we actively having conversations with them, listening to what they think might be able to be changed and make things better? And are we challenging them to grow a little bit every day, every week, every month, every year? Everything's always changing. As we know, the world today is, an Amazon atmosphere. We want everything same day. We want everything at our doorstep. And I just think there's a missing link with, training the administrative team and the clinical team and making sure that they are advancing in their knowledge as well as the clinician.
I agree 1,000% because you talked about, shadowing. I think it's great when people get to shadow, but people learn in different ways. My degree, like I was a teacher for 7 years, so being able to differentiate the training, the teaching is important because some people are visual learners, some people are hands-on, kinesthetic, some people are auditory. You could just say it to them once and hey, they got it, but it's like you need to be hitting all of these things. You can't just, well, I learned this way. You need to be able to talk to the person, figure that out in the hiring process, make notes of it, and then go into that and make the learning process fun where they want to learn and be productive. It can't just be this slog of, oh God, I got to go in there and they're going to, for the next 2 weeks, I've got to learn all this stuff. And it's just boring. We had an interview with Southern Roots the other day, and they were talking about their onboarding process, how they make it fun and exciting. And it's all about training, and they give them the resources and they make sure that people are the right fit during that. They have a trial period and everything. And I just think that's a great way to go into this part of it, talking about how does passive accountability show up day to day, and what downstream effect does it have on patient experience and team morale in the long run?
Yeah, I mean, most of the time, we go through that training process and there's just very vague expectations. We're not setting those intentional, specific goals. 30, 60, 90 days. You should be here at 30, here at 60, here at 90. And having those conversations at those specific timeframes of the training process, so there's vague expectations, a lack of follow through most of the time on those touch points during that process. And there's only feedback when things go wrong.
Yes.
So again, we're being reactive to problems once they arise instead of proactive and having those conversations during that process to navigate this in a better way and get in front of the things that may have the potential to go wrong. And then there's this huge team impact when we're not doing that. The morale dips because the high performers burn out. They're kind of doing everything. They're expected to train this person. But, you know, the low performers are kind of sliding by, just kind of, you know, getting through the flow of the day. It's a job to them. They clock in at 8 a.m. They leave at 5 p.m. They don't think about it during their lunch break or when they leave the practice. And no one really knows what winning looks like because those expectations are very vague. They're not intentional. There's no goal set. There's nothing to look forward to meeting and attaining. And then the patient experience definitely suffers from that. Inconsistent greetings, missed follow-ups, fragmented care, and that erodes the trust and loyalty of those patients that we want to be getting that red carpet experience, that first in class, very positive experience. And when you don't set those expectations early on and you're not meeting with the team regularly or one-on-one to make sure that they are understanding what their expectations are, and it's a continuous process to grow and keep implementing that, all of these things are going to crumble one by one. And you're going to notice that, you know, you're not growing like you want to grow. And it's not always, you know, a lead issue or a volume issue or a referral issue. Sometimes we have to look at our internal processes and realize it's an us issue, and we need to be intentional with our team members and make sure they understand their expectations.
I think of it as like fast food. You look at like a Wendy's. I don't see a lot of people in Wendy's, you know, Long John Silver. Like, nobody's beating down to Captain D's door. You know what I mean? But you drive by a Chick-fil-A and it's wrapped around the building. There's tons of people inside of it, and they're excited to be there because everybody has a role that they're playing. They know exactly what they're supposed to be doing, and they just execute on such a high level. And your practice can be the exact same way. You just have to be clear and set expectations, set goals that people know and that are achievable, but that are going to make them push a little bit further. But I want to jump into role clarity because I feel like that is playing a huge part of it, because that goes into accountability. So how do you help a team member see the deeper why behind their position beyond just the daily checklist? I think, you know, it's just like, oh yeah, I got to go do this and I got to do that. But let's talk about some accountability. How can that feel empowering rather than punitive?
Yeah, absolutely, Zach. I think it's all about, you know, mindset as well. There needs to be, you know, this atmosphere where we come in the door and our frame of mind, our mindset is just focused on our patients, that mission that we're serving for the practice. We need to go beyond the checklist. You know, what outcome does the role drive? As a TC, my job is to specialize in getting these patients the care that they need and deserve. They've chosen us for a reason. It's my job to let them know why and let them know that we can provide this expectation and this care that they are seeking out from us. And then empowerment, you know, when people understand, you know, the why behind what they're doing, whether they're a clinical assistant and they are expected to give this, you know, ease anxiety, give this great experience, give this caring and comfortable experience, they own their lane and they become innovative. They think of ways to, you know, how do I make this patient more comfortable? How do I ease this patient's anxiety? You know, and whether that be like, hey, I noticed that you're a little bit chilly. It's cold in here today. Let me get you a blanket. Let me get you like a pillow to prop your neck up. It looks like you're having some discomfort. Looks like you're nervous today. I'm going to explain everything in detail before I do it. And just, you know, at that point, when you're empowering them to be that person and drive this welcoming, great experience and letting them know that they're an integral part of that, the accountability becomes a badge of pride and not a threat. You know, they're not thinking that I have to meet all of these expectations. I have this checklist. I have to do all of this. I have to do this and this and this. I don't have time for this. It becomes more of a, I get to do this and I get to provide this experience and I get to treat this person like they're my own family member. And then it becomes, I got to do that today. I get to go home and be happy that I gave that adult or that child a really great experience and change their mindset even coming into the practice for their next appointments. And tools that can help with this are having a mission statement and making sure that every new hire understands that mission statement. I'm a huge advocate for, your monthly meetings with your entire team, reiterating that mission statement and asking each team member what it meant to them this month. What did they do to implement that mission statement and make sure that everyone who walked in our door knew what our mission was for them?
Well, it goes beyond just their words on the wall. There's something that you got told during the onboarding process or something like that. It's actually actionable. It is the culture. It just goes beyond mission statement. It is the culture and the expectation that every person that is employed there, that you're a team, that you are working towards the same outcome for every patient, that it doesn't vary because, oh yeah, they're getting Invisalign, they're special, or they're getting Embrace or whatever. It's like everybody gets the white glove treatment, and that goes back to, Chick-fil-A. Everybody gets served, but they're served on such a high level that just like, man, I just feel, it's a fast food restaurant, but if you do that within your practice, man, it's going to be so big. And going back to the punitive, like, I know as a teacher that students will work way harder when you're trusting them, you're empowering them, than you better do this or you're going to fail, or because I was a band director, or this, that, or the other, your attendance is going to go down, whatever it is. If you do the punitive route, you're only going to get so much output. You're going to get the bare minimum so they don't get punished. But if you empower them, and Dr. Bryce talks about this, he's like, I don't give everything specific what they need to do, because I want them to be creative. I want them to use their critical thinking skills. I want them to go and solve problems. Like you were talking about the blanket thing, like that's huge, because I know a lot of people that just get cold being in a building that's, going to have a lot of people in there. They got to keep it a little cooler, It's like that blanket right there is going to be like, oh my, I feel so much more comfortable. I'm ready to do this. Like that's huge.
Yes.
So
and I think,
go ahead.
Zach. What was your next?
I was going to go to the next question, but if you got something to add, I'd love to hear it.
No, I was just going to say, that goes a long way too in just innovative ideas, empowering them. They feel comfortable bringing new ideas to you. They feel like they are on the same level as you and they are a partner in the practice with you. You're not just the doctor who's this, or the manager, director of operations, this scary person who's like on this pedestal above them. You are a team member with them by empowering them to make decisions and be innovative. And that makes them feel open to coming to you with ideas. You accepted this idea. You like that I did this. What if we tried this in the future? And you would be surprised, at how open your team members become and how many great ideas they'll bring your way to improve your practice just by empowering them with what they're doing and what their role is and how special they are in the practice.
When you think about it, they're doing the role way more than you ever did. You might have been in that role at some point, but they're actively doing it on the day-to-day. So they're seeing things happen. It's like, oh, well, this could be adjusted here. If we did this, if we tweak this in the first phone call and we did, like, it's just those little things. And, going back to being open and actually listening and not going, no, that's not going to work. just listen to their whole idea before ever replying. And I know I've been under leadership before where if it's not their idea, then they don't do it. And it's like that's so much more work for the employee to try to give it as your idea. Just listen to them, and if it's a good idea, run with it.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. I've been in that situation before as well when, you come to leadership with an idea that sometimes you've already tried on for size and it worked really well. And the leadership team needs to be in that open mindset as well and outside of their box and willing to accept your ideas, try them out. The worst that can happen is they don't work and you go back to the way that you were doing things. But being open to these ideas shows your team that you are willing to, try out their ideas. And if they work, that's great. And they're going to feel even better about their position in themselves. And they're going to bring future ideas to you as well, because they'll develop that comfortable relationship with you. And it's not so much, I'm kind of scared to talk to him because he's, so far above me, like he's educated higher than I am. I'm just a front desk. I'm just answering the phones. What do I know?
Yeah.
So showing your team that you are vulnerable and you are open and you are available to have those conversations with them goes so far.
Yeah, I agree. And that brings me to my next question for you is, can you share a moment where redefining a single role unlocked unexpected results for the entire practice?
Yeah, absolutely. So in my practice that I was working in before this role, I had a front desk lady who had been there longer than me. She had been in the role for about 15 years. She would always say, I'm just the front desk. What do I know? I just answer the phones and get people scheduled. What do I know? And I started, implementing these intentional one-on-one conversations. You can come to me. I'm your leader. I'm in scrubs too. Like I'm part of the team. I can hop in anywhere. I've been in your position. And I kind of, sat down with her and listened to her and understood where she was coming from. And previous leadership had, implemented that mindset, like just answer the phones, just do this, do that. We don't need you to do anything else. When she would ask what else she could do, what she could do to help. So historically, she had been kind of, put in a corner. Baby was put in the corner, like I
Yeah.
like to say, if you're a fan of that. So I redefined her role with permission from my leadership. And we made it completely official. It was like in her, time clock where she was clocking in and would see her position title every day. We made her the patient satisfaction specialist. And her energy, her confidence, everything changed. She would stand up from the front desk to welcome patients. She would say, yeah, we have a brushing station over here if you need to brush your teeth. We have bottled water in the fridge over here. Here's your paperwork. Once you get done with it, just bring it back up to me. If you have any questions, let me know. The restrooms, at the end of the hallway. And our reviews skyrocketed just because of that. She would introduce herself. Hi, I'm Kathy. It's so nice to meet you. We're glad you're here today. And on their way out, she would, stand up. Bye. It was so nice having you here. See you next time, especially for consults. And conversions increased, those new patients that would call in just organically, because she was having those amazing conversations. Thank you so much for calling us. Yeah, let me be the first to welcome you. You're going to love it here. Our team is really great. They're going to take really good care of you. She would listen to them. And, it trickled down, with retention. That sets up the whole practice for success. I believe that every role plays a part in the next person down the line. So, the front desk specialist answering the phones, giving that great experience, giving all of the information necessary. And then they come in and see the doctor and the TC, and they're ready to convert most of the time if they've had that amazing experience with the front desk specialist.
Kayla, I love that story. Just like hearing the transformation that this lady went through from going to like well, I'm just here. I'm getting a paycheck. It doesn't really matter what I think or want to do because, previous, leadership kind of beat her down into that place. But you taking the time, which of course, again, time, everybody has the same amount of time, but you taking that time and you talking to her and making it official, not just like oh yeah, you're going to be doing this or whatever, but you made it official. Like that says to me right there that anyone in your practice, if they've got a kind of a chip on their shoulder, a bad attitude or whatever, conversations, actual connection can make a huge difference where you're talking about conversions and retention and all these awesome things. Imagine if you just, we'll get into this here in just a little bit when we're talking about one-on-ones, you take a few, 15 minutes to just talk to, individuals throughout the week. And you're going to have so much more energy within the practice because people feel like they're heard.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And in that experience, giving her that empowerment and just reiterating that how important she was and that she was special and she was the best part of our practice, really. I mean, she got to welcome everybody and give them that amazing experience and be the face of the practice when they walked in the front door or when they called in on the phone. She would come to me regularly. I have this idea. Do you think we could do this? Do you think we could change this? And it just opened up this entire new door of communication that we did not have before.
It's just amazing. One little change can open the floodgates. So let's jump into setting SMART goals for every role. What's your process for weaving leadership communication or efficiency metrics into clinical roles' SMART goal so they're more than just production numbers?
Yeah, absolutely. So we can talk about, numbers all day long. And one of my, deficits when I first started out as a leader was I was very business oriented. I was very data driven. We need to meet these metrics. We need to meet these goals. And it was not resonating with my team. So I took it upon myself to, get a little bit more knowledge, read some self-help books on leadership, and consult with my peers as well, my colleagues who had been doing this longer than I had. And it's all about kind of broadening the metrics. It's not all about numbers. It's not all about case starts, production this month, add goals for communication, a 95% call answer rate. I know that's still a number, but let's get on the phones. Let's answer those phones. Mentoring a new hire, a leader mentoring a new hire, or efficiency, turnaround time for lab cases, just kind of changing things up with what the expectations are and not so much production, collections, case starts, things like that. And it's also about co-creation, meeting with the entire team and listening to them. Goals stick when the team member helps design them. And, when it's tied to personal growth or team impact, that lab turnaround time impacts the entire team. If we can get patients in sooner, our schedule becomes more efficient. And it gives them something to, be proud of. Hey, I saw that this case wasn't in the lab yet. I called the lab. They said they'll have it here this afternoon. Or, setting a goal for them. Hey, does anybody, have a desire to learn how to do the cold sterile or how to clean the autoclave, and setting a goal like that, that they can meet. Yeah, I would love for this person to teach you how to clean the autoclave on this admin day. And we're going to set a goal that you will learn how to do that by the end of this month. You never know what goals your team has unless you talk to them or what, how they want to grow in the practice until you talk to them. And having that conversation in a team atmosphere, you get others involved in another person's growth goal. So it kind of links the team together. They can partner up on what someone is really good at and has the expertise in. And then they partner up with this person who wants that expertise, but just didn't know how to ask for it.
there's less pressure in that, which I love. There's also just bringing down barriers because when you're starting out in any role and you have somebody that's above you or doing something that you would love to do, it feels almost impossible to get there because you don't want to step on anyone's toes, you don't want to take their job, and it's like you're not taking their job. Like one day they might be sick and nobody else knows how to do the autoclave and like whatever it is. It's like if you are willing to go that extra mile, and they might be busy that day, and it's like, hey, can you please go? Like it opens up and it brings a lot less pressure to the entire group. And I really love this because it's collaborative. People aren't by themselves, and so many times in so many different industries and different jobs, you feel like you're alone even in a room that is just filled with people.
I agree with you completely. And I, had a lot of these group discussions. I made them intentional. There was always time on the agenda during our monthly group meetings to talk about growth goals from each individual, and they could come forward, if they wanted to or if they didn't want to. And just, does somebody want to grow? Does somebody want to learn something new? Let us know. Let's team you up with another team member or another peer, and let's get that done. It was just all about letting them know that we're here for them as a team and they're not alone, and somebody's always willing to help them out if they want to learn something new.
So let's jump into the next question I have for you, Kayla. Have you coached a team through possibly a non-traditional SMART goal that looked odd on paper, but turned out to be a game changer?
Yeah, so going back to kind of, the warm blankets and the pillows. So I had an assistant come to me. She wanted to improve patient comfort, but she wasn't sure how that looked or if we would be open to it. We didn't have blankets and pillows in the practice. We didn't have like comfort items. And she was worried that I as the leader would say, no, it's not in the budget, because that's what the verbiage had been before when ideas were brought. She had also been there about 15 years. I came in about 4 years into her tenure. And her goal was to reduce patient anxiety by introducing these, comfort items. And we made a plan to introduce one new comfort touch point every week or every other week that she thought of and had the idea for. I gave her a budget. I would send her, down the road to Target or something to get what she thought would make our patients more comfortable and be nice to have in our arsenal of, we called it our comfort cupboard. And this was from warm blankets that we would, just warm up in the dryer. Travel size pillows, those dental chairs aren't always the most comfortable, especially, for someone who's had a back injury or something like that. We also found these tooth-shaped stress balls that we could offer to our patients if they wanted like something to kind of fidget with while they were in the chair during their appointment. That was her idea. And we had curated playlists, if the patient wanted calming music in their operatory, we had a go-to channel that we would put on for them. If they were into classic rock, we would put that on for them. And that would, ease the anxiety, make the appointment seem quicker because we were including what they liked and what their interests were into their appointment. And that it boosted our NPS scores. It boosted our reviews, and we actually saw our referrals increase from that. Word of mouth, people were going to their friends and family and saying, hey, go here. They have blankets, they have pillows, like they have these really cute stress balls. They play your favorite music. It was really interesting to see the effect of that, what she thought was a small idea that actually helped our entire practice in the end.
Like I'm thinking like, going to a medical practice or whatever, like 9 times out of 10, well, 10 times out of 10, it's HGTV on the screen. They're playing like, I like some home renovation stuff, but it's like every time I go in there, I know that's what's going to be on there. and it's just like, okay. And then, you go to the dentist and everything, it's on the screen above you. And like, it's just like, it would be much better because, like, when I go to the gym, I'm riding the bike, I put a show that I'm interested in, and it makes the bike ride so much easier. I'm not even concerned about the bike ride. I'm just pedaling, I'm going and all of that, get my heart rate up, and then, oh, well, my time's up, and then I'm done with the day. And it's like those little things make a huge difference. You were saying referrals went up. All of these, it's just the small little thing, with the comfort. And it's like, what could you be doing in your practice, people that are watching this, that could have that same result? And it also empowers your team members to do more of that.
Absolutely. And, it got to the point towards the end of implementation where the whole team was involved in adding notes into the patient charts that this patient prefers a warm blanket and a pillow at their visit. This patient prefers this channel on the TV. This patient likes this during their appointment to ease their anxiety. And before they would even bring their patient back, they would have those items ready to make that experience the best that it could possibly be.
I love that. I love that so much. Like that, it's that it goes into unreasonable hospitality when you know what people like. You're setting up their experience to be absolutely amazing, and they're going to rave. You're wanting to create raving fans. Yeah, the expectation is to have straight teeth when you get done with this, but it's the experience to get there that people are going to rave about. So
Absolutely.
let's talk about some treatment coordinator. I have an example here about 15% same day starts and stronger connections. Let's jump into that a little bit. So let's use that goal. How would you coach them on day to day so both the numbers and human connection improve in tandem?
Yeah, absolutely, Zach. So I would do kind of daily coaching with my TCs, at the end of the day. Hey, how did today go? How was this conversation? How many people started? How many people signed up? What were the objections that you saw? And we would celebrate the wins. You got 6 people to either start or sign up to start in the future today. That's amazing. Like, good job to you. How did those conversations go? What did you say to gain that relationship and that yes from that patient? And then we would talk about, the near misses or the misses. What could we do next time to make sure that that patient has a great experience and we get a yes from them? Or how soon can we follow up? What notes did you take regarding the conversation? Can we maybe call them tomorrow and just make sure that we're touching base with them? Ask them about their experience, ask them what we could have done better, or, what we could change to get them to come back and engage with us. And role playing, common objections. I would keep a list of every objection that we ever heard. And we would role play those on a monthly basis. I actually had, monthly whole team meetings, and then I would have one off, like, we're going to meet as TCs for 30 minutes every other week. We're going to meet as front desk specialists for 30 minutes every other week that I'm not meeting with the TCs. So I kind of broke it down so that we could celebrate wins by team, and discuss, what we could do better, the feedback that we all had for each other, and how to move forward from this point, or how we could face objections in a different way and navigate those. And then, it's kind of like a dual focus. You're tying every number to a story. So that means 15% means 3 more families who felt understood and excited. If we had a conversion rate of 54% this week, ending the week, and we've brought it up to 62% the next week, what did we do differently to engage that many more patients and get them started and get them, on the road to the smile that they want? And then tracking behavior, focus on what the TCs can control, and, follow-up response time, clarity of communication, personalization. I think it's a continuous effort. Some people don't like small talk. Some people have the gift of gab. Some people do not. But definitely, just kind of tracking that and making sure that you're reiterating that, these conversations work. It looks like this one didn't work this time. Maybe we can try this next time. It's all about just continuous improvement and continuous, one-on-ones and conversation revolving around those situations that we're experiencing on a day-to-day basis. And we all know, the world of dentistry, our patients, sometimes it's like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. You don't know what's going to come in the door. And sometimes you have to navigate situations on the fly, and we can all learn from each other's situations.
Again, it goes back to that collaborative mindset. It's not one TC versus the other TC, whose conversion rate's better, and all, like, it can get competitive in a way, which is healthy in some regards, but when it's literally just, numbers, that doesn't help. But it's the human connection that I really like, because you were talking about that every position within the practice is like a station on a conveyor belt. Everybody is doing their job, and when someone comes in and the front desk makes a note within their file that, hey, this person doesn't like small talk, so the TC is set up for success. They're not like, oh, did you see the weather today? And like the person's just like, tell me how much it is. Like, you know what I mean? Like they're not there for that, but it might be somebody that really loves talking, or somebody that has extreme dental anxiety. Like you're equipping your TC for so much success when that's happening. But I love that it's not just, okay, how many same day starts are you getting? I love that the human connection is part of the metrics, like, okay, how do you feel that went and everything? I love that.
Yes, absolutely. And it works.
So tell me your most creative tactic you've seen a coordinator use to turn, patient hesitation into, like, I have to have this, yes, without feeling like salesy. Because I know a lot of people are like, I don't want to feel salesy. Salesy is sleazy. They feel that. But, like, tell me a tactic that you've seen happen before.
For sure. So one of my TCs who I had just kind of, put into that role, I was dual OMing and TCing, and I needed some help. And I, found that she had this really great personality, and she would fit really well into the role. She was very creative. She was an artist. And she actually created a patient vision board. So she would discuss this with them, and it was more of like a verbal vision board. And during the consult, she'd ask, what would your life look like with this smile? Or what event do you have coming up that you would like to have a beautiful, confident smile for? The emotional anchoring of the achievable results that we had just talked about in the treatment room helped hesitant patients make confident decisions, And oftentimes she would get to celebrate things with them. They would say, well, I'm engaged and I'm getting married in a couple years, so I'd really like to have my teeth fixed before then. I'd have to have this beautiful smile. Or I'm in college and I want to be a lawyer, which means I'm going to be talking in front of courtrooms full of people. So taking that, life connection, that life goal, and tying it into the treatment that we presented and the treatment that they're seeking, and making it more of an emotional, goal-oriented process really resonated. And, she would have people that were teetering on the edge, and she would say, hey, let's put together a vision board. What does your perfect smile mean for the rest of your life or years down the road? What are your plans in life? How can we connect your smile to that? And she would get people to say, you know what, you're right. This is an investment that I need to make right now so that I have that smile going forward. I have that confidence. And this investment is something that, is really going to mean a lot for my future.
That is very interesting, because it's outcome focused. We have Julie Nice that works with us and everything, and it feels a lot like, having the outcome in mind. You're setting that up mentally for them, and then
Mhm.
you're building, you're kind of future pacing all of these things that they want to achieve, how they want to feel, how they want to look, how they want to, when they walk in the room, how does people react to them when they're having a conversation? How are people, sensing them, like vibing with them and everything. And that is a really, really cool way to do it, because so many times the objection is the money. But
Mhm.
it's like, if you have had all of these systems set up where front desk is doing their job, TC is doing their job before they even come in, and then you get them in there and that part is diffused, it's like money might still be an objection, but all the decisions are actually emotional, and then we back it up with logic. So if you can get them to feel like they are making this decision to where they want to go.
Mhm.
I love it. Like, Kayla, you're bringing so much good stuff up in here today. Like, I'm having a good time. I don't know if
Well,
anybody
thank
else
you
is.
so much.
I'm having a good time. So I know we're slightly running out of time here, but I want to jump into one-on-ones because I feel like this is something that people miss so much in any kind of practice, is one-on-ones, because everybody gets bogged down in everything. So let's jump into this. You call one-on-ones the heartbeat of culture. What
Okay.
makes that small slice of time more potent than team huddles or the bigger staff meetings that you've been mentioning?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's all about, again, going back to making your team feel like they're valued. You're cutting time out to have, intimate and intentional conversations with them by themselves and build that relationship. You care about them, you value them. They're an important part of your practice and you see them as a partner, not just an employee. So unlike team huddles, one-on-ones kind of create a safe space for that team member to open up to you. They will give you real feedback. Oftentimes, when you're just alone with that person and you're making them feel comfortable, they'll open up to you about their aspirations, their growth goals, and what that means for your practice. And then the culture, it just kind of cascades from there. Leaders model presence, curiosity, and care when they're having these one-on-ones. Um, the team members feel like you're actually seeing them and hearing them because you're meeting with them and you're carving out this time specifically for them on your schedule, which they know is extremely busy. And then you're setting the tone for how teammates treat one another. They're going to come out of that conversation with you feeling valued and cared for. And they're going to go into the practice back with their team, and it's going to resonate and it's going to cause them to treat everybody with that same care and value. And then, consistency, even simple, just 15-minute one-on-ones, hey, can you get here 15 minutes early before huddle so we can have a conversation? I would love to hear from you. I would love to hear how things are going, or taking them out for coffee in the morning.
Mm.
This clinical leader is going to lead morning huddle today. I want to go have a coffee with you real quick so we can talk about how you're feeling and how things are going in the practice for you. It's all about just showing them that you care and you have the time for them. They're not just another number. They're not just another person clocking in and out for the day.
Yeah, it's the quick check-in to make sure everything's good. And, setting this up where the culture is, that's part of it. Because, like, I know from my experience, like, I get like bad anxiety when it's like, oh, I want to talk to you, and it's like, it's like, oh God, I'm going to get fired. That part of your mind shifts. But when that's part of the culture where it's like everybody has these, that sets everybody up on the same playing field, and actually will help them achieve the goals that they want. Because somebody might be working there for a long time and they're like, well, I really like clinical's fine, but I'd really like to answer phone calls. I would like, you can see that, and it doesn't feel like this awkward conversation because you, as the office manager or whatever position would be doing these, it might be a team lead or something. It will set things up so nicely to have that kind of actual conversation. I know you kind of you had mentioned the lady that was like the front desk, and like y'all need to go back. Y'all just need to go listen to that part again, okay? Y'all go back and listen to that part because that was transformative. Talk to me about we hit the weekly 15 minutes. Talk about the 30-minute deep dives and the 60-minute like quarterly meetings for me real quick.
Yeah, absolutely. So those monthly 30-minute deep dives, it's kind of about balancing hard metrics with personal development so it feels strategic rather than like a performance review. You don't want to be like, hey, you're not performing in this area, you can do better in this area. Yeah, you want to lead with impact, start with metrics, but quickly bridge over to behaviors and decisions behind them. What are you most proud of? What decision did you make this month that made you feel really good, that you just feel really proud and you want to share with me or you want to share with the team? And what would you do differently? Did you have a situation that came up and, someone was just really unhappy and you don't think that you handled the conversation in the best way and you wish you could have changed it? Talk about things like that. Get them to open up to you. Get that. It's more about listening to their feedback and, just being a sounding board, because oftentimes they'll realize what could have gone better and they'll tell you and they'll learn because they're reiterating it and they're letting you know their thought process. And then it will stick. It'll be kind of like a core memory in a sense, because you listen to them and let them come to the conclusion on their own. And, it kind of, you map out development in these 30-minute, deep diving conversations, tie performance to personal goals. If they want to be more confident, if they want to lead people someday, but they just don't know the path to get there, understand where they're at, show them that there is a course, we can put them on a path to leadership. We can coach them into this confidence that they want to gain by giving them the right information, giving them the right tools to grow. And, just that 30 minutes, you often learn so much about what your team wants to do, not what they're just already doing. And it helps them think strategically and kind of brainstorm new ideas and use you as a sounding board.
That's awesome. I love that. And just to kind of let everybody know, like the format that you're suggesting is like a 3-part kind of question, like, or 3 questions essentially. What's working well, the struggles that are going on, and then upcoming goals.
Yes.
So run real quickly, like give me a minute version of the 60-minute
Yeah.
one-on-one.
Yeah. So the 60-minute is more of like a quarterly growth conversation. So you definitely want to have some prep work into this. So you are asking the team member to prep for this conversation. You want them to reflect on their wins over the quarter, over the last 3 months, their struggles and what they need help with, what they actively want advice on, and their ideal growth path. Have you thought about, where you want to be in the next 90 days or in the next quarter? Is there something that you would like to learn in those 3 months? The leader needs to also prep as well. Bring data, bring notes, bring feedback, prepare like 1 to 2 stretch opportunities that team member can own, whether it be, I want to see your shorthand note taking improve a little bit better. Or I want to see your patient engagement improve. And then there should always be an outcome. So you should feel like this is a pivot point. There's new goals, there's renewed energy, and there's an aligned vision. So it's kind of like a quarterly reset, a mindset reset, getting them back into the groove, just reiterating, what we're here for. We're partners in this, what success means to the overall practice, and how they play a role in that.
I love that because that works with the 12-week year. which I think is a fantastic book that everybody needs to read. And it's like, instead of waiting to the last quarter of the year, you have 12 weeks that, what was it? 60-minute, that's a quarterly review. So
Yeah.
that's essentially 12 weeks. So you're checking in. It's like, okay, these were your goals. How did we do? Like Kayla, we're going to have you back on, because I feel like there's so much more that we can go into all of this. But I wanted to hit one last thing. Why do you start all your one-on-ones with what's working well? How can that actually set the tone instead of like being like confrontative with the person that you're talking with?
Yeah, so you're priming the tone of that conversation to be positive. You're not starting with anything negative. What's going wrong? What are your struggles? You're celebrating with them. You are, setting a safe, affirming tone. They don't feel like this is, intimidating, or you're coming at them with data and metrics and things that they've done over the past 12 weeks. And it opens them up to feedback and new ideas. They feel, calmed down. The interaction is positive. They're in a safe environment. You are not there to tell them what they're doing wrong. You're there to celebrate them. And just, it builds momentum for the rest of the conversation. It helps them see that they are progressing. They've had progress, which makes coaching feel like building and not fixing anything that's going wrong or fixing them. It doesn't, they're not the problem. They're actually, a really great asset. They're valuable, and we just want to build upon that value.
Wow. Couldn't say it any better myself. Kayla, thank you so much for being on. Everybody, that is our stream today. Make sure to like and subscribe to our weekly podcast, the Grow Ortho podcast, and our brand new The Grow Dental podcast. Guys, if you don't take this stuff, this is gold. Kayla is giving you $1 million worth of ideas today, okay? Because all of this content can help grow your practice. And Mark Twain said it best, everybody. The secret of getting ahead is getting started. So go out there and get started making the changes you want to see in your practice now. This has been Zach.
And Kayla.
Thank you for listening to the Grow Ortho podcast.